society is evolving. Breakthroughs in DNA technology have changed our lives profoundly in the past decades, ranging from forensic techniques to ancestry tracking. We can thank scientists for a modern lifestyle, but one common subject often overlooked is the ethical aspect. When implementing a new engineering solution to a global problem, the outcome must clearly outweigh the potential side effects.
And this is even harder to do when these risks are somewhat unknown. This is the current problem that synthetic biology is facing. And with varying laws and legislations around the world, the future is dependent on these discussions.
Now, we have mentioned some problems with synthetic biology, but what possibilities are there?
We have been told all of our lives that bacteria is bad for us, but what if that wasn't necessarily true? In our gut, 100 trillion bacteria are thriving. These bacteria are known as the gut microbiota and can be both good and bad. We're focusing on introducing a good bacteria called probiotics that decreases the amount of harmful bacteria. Probiotics means for life and are microorganisms that may help us all improve our body's bacterial environment. Natural probiotics could, for example, be found in fermented foods. And with the help of DNA technology, we could genetically modify our probiotics to fit our needs.
But what does it mean to genetically modify an organism? The simple explanation is to modify the genes of an organism in order to control the gene's expressions. The gene expression is what controls certain functions in our body. A genetically modified organism, a GMO, is an organism that has been genetically altered in a lab in a way that does not occur naturally. Before modern DNA technology, farmers selected certain individuals with desirable traits in order to produce desirable offspring. But that practice could take generations. Equipped with DNA technology, we can tailor our probiotic bacterium and get the desired results much sooner than with conventional breeding. In order to find out how a gene-modified bacterium could help us in preventing Alzheimer's disease, let's discover how a bacterial protein could interfere with our brain.
Studies in rats have found a direct correlation between the bacterial protein curly in the gut and plaque buildup in the brain. It is possible that some of these cases are connected to the curly protein. Curly is produced in the gut by the bacteria E. coli and can cause misfolds in other proteins. If the signal causing this misfolding travels up the vagus nerve to the brain, trouble arises. This type of plaque buildup could increase the risk of developing Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. A probiotic could be the solution to prevent these diseases. In our project, we're aiming to genetically modify the probiotic bacteria L. reuteri in order to inhibit curly formation in the gut. When curly can't form, we're hoping to avoid plaque buildup in the brain and thereby avoiding disease. Great solution. We're done now. Or are we?
With our gene-modified L. reuteri solution, we would be giving a genetically modified bacteria to people, perhaps during a span of decades, and this raises many questions. Is gene-modifying bacteria to give to humans an act of medical progress, or is it potentially dangerous for our ecosystem and human health? The first topic that we would like to address is the complexity of the gut. Our GMO-designed L. reuteri aims to inhibit curly growth in our guts, but what if it turns out that in doing so, people will face unwanted health issues? Disturbing this balance can be quite problematic. As people consuming antibiotics might have noticed, the antibiotics are affecting all bacteria, including the good ones, which can lead to unpleasant side effects such as cramp, gas, or diarrhea.
Our probiotic should decrease the amount of bad E. coli, but in doing so, some of the good E. coli could also be affected. This problem might be exacerbated by something called horizontal gene transfer. Horizontal gene transfer means that genes are transferred between bacteria, which could lead to unintended consequences. Our gene-modified L-reuteri must be thoroughly tested before being consumed by the public in order to avoid these issues. Our aim is that our L-reuteri should be beneficial to consume, with no bad side effects. In order to prevent any harm to consumer health, we will discuss the next topic, safety regulations.
Today in the EU, GMO food is strictly regulated by EFSA, while in the US, GMO food is regulated by FDA and is more freely available to the everyday consumer. Even though GMO is way more regulated and prohibited in the EU, there are some types of food that are available. Most of the GMO authorized foods belong to the EU agricultural sector. We are gene modifying probiotics, not crops. This brings us to the question, what do people think about GMO and probiotics? We conducted a survey to find out what everyday people know about GMO and probiotics. 75% know what GMO is, but only 50% know what probiotics are. So while GMO seems to be quite well known, not that many people know what probiotics are.
With our GMO L-reuteri in mind, we asked them whether they would take a GMO probiotics if it was properly regulated. Now, 74% said that they would consider doing so. The safety aspect is super important from the consumer's point of view. Now, we might ask ourselves how GMO probiotics are discussed, and perhaps how the current strict EU legislation might determine that scientific discussion. A study from 2021 by the European Commission found that today's strict regulation has a negative impact on the research of GMO in the EU. The study also points out that there's a lack of scientific knowledge on how application in animals and other microorganisms are affected, especially from a safety perspective. So right now, the EU is faced with two problems. GMO research is being held back, and we're not aware of the potential risks. This brings us to the next topic, potentially releasing GMO into our ecosystem. Is this a risk?
All things considered, we need to poop. And as we do this, our engineered L-reuteri enters the outside world. Now, life outside of the gut is a harsh place. The temperature is no longer the comfortable 37 degrees that L-reuteri is used to. It would likely not survive, and it would even less likely grow and thrive. But what could be the issue? If the new DNA that we are introducing spreads through horizontal gene transfer, then it could do things that we did not anticipate it to do. We have to weigh these drawbacks against the benefits that our GMO could provide. The discussion surrounding this today is not very constructive. Since the EU focuses the GMO conversation heavily on agriculture, we would like to broaden the conversation to also include gene-modified bacteria. We don't want to harm the natural microbial community. Our modified L-reuteri should be safe to consume and not cause any harm in nature. This shows us how important it is to get a proper testing framework.
We in Team Curely acknowledge that the GMO question is complicated. The EU chose to go with the precautionary principle in order to protect the citizens, and we agree that it is important to stay safe. However, we cannot just turn a blind eye and drop the discussion and research. We would also like to stress the importance of knowledge and staying up to date with the most recent GMO developments. Another reason is that GMO is not only crops, it can also be bacteria. We need to broaden the conversation. One of the conclusions we can draw from the survey we conducted is that our target audience for this potential product don't care or aren't informed enough about the topic to actually form their own opinions. A number of people also responded that they thought GMO was dangerous due to the EU strict control. This shows how it is important to have an open discussion.
We would like to advocate for a scientific, reliable testing framework that will assess the new GMOs in order to protect both the environment and human health. Team Curely aims to prevent Alzheimer's. The key in our project is a modified bacterium. And if our gene-modified L-Reuteri is thoroughly tested and proves to be both safe and to be of help in our fight against neurodegenerative diseases, we believe that this is an ethical approach. We would like to end the video on 2 key takeaways. Open up for broader GMO research and build a dependable testing framework for new genetically modified organisms. We believe that if done properly and with safety at top of mind, gene-modified bacteria can be greatly beneficial to human health.